Welcome to the Great Distraction.
What is up, people? This is a Great Distraction, and today the topic of discussion is human life expectancy. My name is Ben, and with me today are my co-hosts Thomas.
Yes, that's me.
And Glenn.
Hello, folks.
Thank you for joining us. The Great Distraction is a podcast that focuses on a vast and random range of topics, and we hope that each episode leaves you with, if nothing else, something to ponder. And as always, guys, we would love to hear from you. Questions, comments, and topic suggestions are always welcome. You can contact us on Facebook or by email at greatdistractionpodcast@gmail.com.
And Ben's personal phone number is 777-4812-13.
No. Remember every number had, if like the movies, 555?
Oh, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Klondike.
Klondike.
That's what you say in the old movies.
Really?
Yeah. Because the phone numbers used to have words in them.
What?
They would have a couple digits and usually a word.
Oh.
Yeah. Back in like the 40s, 50s.
That I did
When
not know.
When my parents first moved into the house that they bought in Indiana, they had a 5-digit phone number.
5? Wow.
In the
That's crazy.
Early 70s.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything other than 7 plus area code, but
Yeah.
But what the hell's the words in it? That's new.
Yeah, back in the day,
they
they used to be like, it'd be like 49 Bozard or something, and it was a district or something. So they would, because it was all operators on,
They would
switchboards.
operator, yes.
So you'd say Klondike, and that's this area. So the running joke was 382 Klondike, whatever. But that was the way they did districts.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Which is essentially what they're doing with numbers anyway.
Kinda,
they just change it to numbers instead of the words because the words are probably too long to write out.
But I mean, if in the district of, let's say, Klondike, just because we're using that word, if there was only 15 people had a phone. So
you can easily find
Klondike 7. Oh, Dave.
Yeah, the old switchboards too used to look like be divided as far as what geographical area, and they would use jumper cables to switch your two things together. And
crazy later with all these little cables.
Sitting there with all the cables going back and forth between those little holes.
What happens when I run out?
Damn, that's wow. Right? Yeah, I guess.
And they could listen to all conversations back then.
They had to, because when the conversation was done, they would unplug the jumper cable and then free up that line.
Wow.
Yeah,
they've been spying on us forever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, they were doing that stuff too. Either law enforcement, even local law enforcement, somebody could just step into the switchboard house and be
like... I was back in the day when somebody else in the house could pick up the phone real quietly. Click it up like your mom. Click it up. And she's like...
Then until you hear something you did not want to hear.
And like 2 days later, she's asking you questions that she clearly would not know unless she was eavesdropping.
That's right. I didn't sneak out, Mom. That's not true. How do you know? Anyway, we are talking today about human life expectancy. Human beings are living longer than they ever have before.
Just today?
Just today only. For today only. If you were born today, you will live longer.
For $99.99.
Yeah, that's right.
Buy 2, get it for $89.99.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, shit.
Like a 3 a.m. infomercial.
Right.
No. Okay, so let's start off with some numbers because this stuff I found extremely interesting, and I think you guys will too. What was it? The UN World Population Prospects, and for 2017, that was the most recent release of data. They give a range that pretty much all the stuff I found online works off of this data that they've collected in this report that they've released. And like I said, the last one was in 2017. They range their information and their stats from in 100-year blocks, and the latest one is 1950 to 2050. So obviously it goes a little past because they're trying to show if we follow these current trends, and based on some other information, we project it out to 2050. Here is what the numbers will look like, is kind of what they're saying with this report. There was a note here that I wanted to read verbatim from the report, and that is this. Factors related to possible wars, epidemics, or new factors such as the collapse of biodiversity and or the climate crisis are sources of significant uncertainties for this type of perspective, not taken into account in this graph. And the graph is where I pulled the numbers from this particular source. Life expectancy in good health or without disability is also more difficult to predict. So what they're saying there is negating or ignoring things like war and famine, because those things can skew numbers, tremendously. What they're trying to show is human life expectancy for more or less healthy or normal individuals under normal circumstances are the numbers that they're looking for. And that particular graph was, again, this one was geographical, and
Graph was geographical.
the graph with the chart. Okay, it was a chart. Yes. Anyway, the highest continent, I guess, because it was broken down by continents, was North America at 69 in 1950. Up to projected 85 in 2050. Currently in North America, we're at about 79, and that's more so America, the U.S., than it is all of North America because maybe not so oddly to think about, Canada is actually higher. I think they're at 81.7.
Wow.
And I don't remember Mexico's number, but Mexico was lower. So it's kind of like, I guess that makes sense, maybe, but I don't know.
Does that mean the colder, higher up you get in the?
Yeah, it's like so. Actually,
healthier you are. Or
we'll talk a little bit more about that. However, there was some research. I'll get to it here later because I can't remember the specifics off the top of my head. But there was research showing that lower metabolism in colder areas help people live longer, and the proof to that they were I was go into that more later, but like very large animals that live a very long time breathe very slowly.
Like
they
bears.
have or elephants or large sea turtles. They not only do they breathe slowly, their metabolism also works slower, and they also limit their caloric intake. And all these things combined with a slowed down metabolism, they think that that's one of the reasons they're living longer because they're.
So if humans are in that colder environment, that starts to.
They may have a lower
effect.
metabolism and
Wow.
eat less calories from certain substances, and also too they probably eat healthier in general, depending on what they're eating or whereabouts they are, how heavily populated their area is. But anyway, so I'll get into that a little bit later.
Interesting.
Right. The lowest age range was in Africa, and in 1950 it was 38. Keep in mind North America was 69 at the time. Up to the projected in 2050 of 71, which is still 14 years behind the projected for North America. Thought that was pretty crazy. Second place was Europe, and in 1950 they were 63 to North America's 69, and in 2050 they're projected to be at 82, which seems to be about on par with where North America is being predicted to head. Now, for the U.S., those were the UN's world stats. For the U.S., the CDC National Center for Health Statistics (NCHS) puts out a data brief. It looks like every year. I only looked at the most recent one, and that was done in November of 2018. This document is awesome. And as a matter of fact, there's another source I'll mention here at the end that has even a whole bunch of cool stats, real easy to digest that the CDC puts out. But anyway, from this report, again, November 2018, for 2017, the averages, and again, this is just U.S., for males is 76.1 average life expectancy, and for females, 81.1. So the ladies got a good 5 years on
Without us.
Well, with or without us.
So that'd be their glory years when their dumbass husbands are dead.
If you're
That
yes,
fucker finally kicked the bucket.
So
I
if
took
you're-
all his money and I'm on vacation.
if you're elderly and your husband happened and married and your husband happened to have passed at 76, that means you probably got another 5 years left.
Enjoy it, ladies.
Wow.
That's it, based on these averages, apparently. That's terrible. So one of the ways they break this down is per 100,000. Again, I'm still staying with the U.S.-based CDC data brief. And they break these stats down per 100,000. Just to give you some reference as to what that means size-wise, I guess, there were 2.8 million deaths in 2017. Okay. For reference, there were 3.9 million births in 2017. So 2.8 dead, 3.9 birthed babies. And the U.S. population for size-wise is, again for reference, 327 million. So we have about 1.1 million births per deaths in 2017. There you go.
Wow.
There you go.
That's going to add up quick.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think we're running out of people. Let's just put it that way.
We're just going to be running out of food.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic, but definitely one that we will be hitting at some point. Now, per 100,000 of those 2.8 million deaths, or rather, I should say, looked at in $100,000, $100,000
$100,000 pyramid.
bucks.
Take
Man,
a guess, Ben. Which one's going to die?
Per 100,000 blocks of people. Out of that 2.8 million in 2017, most of those deaths, or the largest percentage, was black males. Second, white males. The lowest, Hispanic females. I mean, all right. I don't know why, but that's the way the stats they gave. This part was very interesting. The causes of these deaths in remember 2.8 million, 2017. That's what we're working with here.
Police gun bullet.
No. Contrary to the media, guns really don't kill that many people. It's not even on the charts.
Nope.
Number one by far at 23%, 647,000, heart disease. Sugar kills people.
Fuck
Yes,
yeah.
it does.
Number one killer among everything possible, or tracked, I should say. Maybe not possible. Bad
Coca-Cola.
choice of words. Yeah. Number two, 21%. So here's like 44% right there. That's almost half the deaths accounted for in 2017. Cancer, all forms, not one, not just breast cancer, all forms of cancer
So almost half the deaths
are
are
heart
those
disease
two things.
and cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, 44%. Chew on that for a second. Number three,
But do a low-fat version.
yeah, seriously. Number three, accidents, unintentional injuries. And number three is only 6%.
What?
That's the numbers I got here. I know it doesn't make sense. 44. So now we're at 44 plus 6. That's 50%. Now they listed a whole bunch of other ones, but the percentages were very small for all of them. So it was like a lot of different breakdowns.
How many percentage of people die from choking on a chicken bone?
Well, that would be unintentional injury. That would be
I guess
6%.
Okay.
Now, the one of the lower ones that I thought was interesting to note, because we've actually done an episode on suicide, and this one was classified as intentional self-harm (parentheses suicide), 1.7%.
1.7.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
What'd you call it? What's the fancy word they gave for that phrase?
Intentional self-harm, and then in parentheses suicide.
So really, if we want to get all social justice-y and take on the big things that are concerning our people, we need to go and
Attack the sugar companies.
the
And
soft
corn.
drinks, the
Yeah.
fast food,
Well, the corn.
the-
Just get the corn growers.
Yeah.
And you nip it
High
at the bud.
fructose
Right there.
corn syrup.
That's it. Corn is
but
the
you can't
problem.
because those people have lobbied their way into
Those
so much.
people run the country.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, you want to fight with us? We'll just starve to death.
we'll just kill
See you
you.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh wait, we're already killing you.
right. Well, 'cause
we're
you
taking your
can't
money
grow
while
own
you're
food
dying.
anymore. So
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, your
Well-
food, or all your food's going to taste like shit because we're not going to put our high fructose corn syrup anymore in it.
Right.
because you're all addicted.
But where is the sugar cane? Where are they?
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Hmm.
That's Hawaii's not big enough to feed this country with all the sugar it needs. It feeds all the other countries though.
Right.
But just not
That's
this one.
what-
no,
blows me
because
away.
we consume how much more sugar than anybody else?
I'm gonna
Keep eating
at
that
least,
ketchup, people.
Yeah.
Mustard's better. So
Mustard.
interestingly,
Horseradish. That's where it's at.
Okay. Interestingly, births are down and have been declining since 2007. I know this isn't related to longevity or whatever, but these
there's an
stats are
effect of-
kind of, yeah. Since 2007. In 2007, roughly 4.3 million births, down to, again, going to the 2017 numbers, 3.9 million. That's not a huge amount, but contrary to what it seems like, I guess if you live in California and you judge world population by traffic, as we tend to do when we're sitting there pissed because we can't go anywhere, why do these people still keep having babies?
Right.
I've said that more than plenty of times. Really, it's because there's a huge onslaught of people coming to California. It really does not have anything to do with our population growth because it is down.
It's down.
But we do have more people moving here.
Yeah.
That's our problem, not the
Yeah.
country's population issue. Let's see. Per demographics released by Berkeley in a report that I found randomly from their website, Berkeley, the university, in 1980, male and female average life expectancies, average life expectancies, I guess that's plural, 39.4. In 1900, 46.3 for male, 48.3 for female. In 1925, 57.6 for male, 60.6 for female. In 1950, which brings us up to the beginning of our stats that we were talking about earlier, male 65.6, female 71.1. Females have always had a very good percentage.
Well, you know what's interesting about those numbers?
Tell me what's interesting about those numbers.
In 1950, the male was 65. That was average.
65.6, correct.
That's about the same time they started establishing Social Security and the age limits to collect it.
Okay, that's interesting. Wow, that's interesting. So I wonder when Social Security,
like these fuckers will be dead. They don't live that long.
I wonder what the
Make it
payout
65.
was at that time. What the payout age was at that time.
Good question.
Was it?
It's like the railroad retirement.
Right.
It's a fantastic retirement program.
If you
they
live that
didn't-
long.
They didn't expect their employees to live long enough to collect it.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something they account for. Wow, that's funny because I mean, right now, actually, Social Security's been changed, right? But I remember, like when I was growing up, wasn't it like 65, something like that?
It's been 65 for a
has
really
it?
long
Okay.
time. If you do early retirement, and
You get penalized, right?
You get penalized at 62 and a half or something like that. And then if you wait, 'cause my mom just went through this a few years
Okay.
ago. If
Okay.
you wait to 67,
Is it maxed out at 67?
it maxes out at 67.
And then you can go over 100% too, I thought. No, it's at 100% at 67, right? But I think you can keep going to 125 or something. You just keep pushing your luck, basically.
Yeah.
That you're going to, I thought you could. I don't know. I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Maybe
no. When my mom did the math on waiting, it ended up being such a minor amount that she ended up going
really?
a little earlier,
Oh,
like
okay.
2 years earlier or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I've obviously not gone
It's
through
like
it.
$30 or something.
Unfortunately, I am not of that age that I can quit working. So, I have
But you
not
can.
run the. Well, you can.
And you can just move into any street you want downtown Sacramento.
Shit, dude.
Everybody's doing it.
All the cool
It's the
kids.
hip thing to do.
Yeah, all the cool kids are living on the streets now.
Drag things around with stolen extension cords.
Oh man, poor Thomas. Before we started recording, it's off topic, but before we started recording, Thomas was telling us this wonderful story. So I'm sure we've talked about it before, but Thomas is a metal artist and he works out of a warehouse, like hopefully all metal artists do, because it's a little hard to do in your garage. And
Just did it in my bathroom.
we're talking about metal art, not cooking meth.
Oh yeah. Wait a minute.
Wait, what? And he deals with homeless people all the
I
time.
deal with vagrants.
Vagrants, sure.
Just say it.
Okay, whatever.
Let's call them what they
Some
are.
are criminals, some are mentally ill, some are just fucking bad people, some are, whatever. And just dealing with it, you get over it real quick and feeling sorry for people. Anyway.
Their life expectancy is way too long.
Yeah. Damn.
Especially that fucker that tried to break into some shit the other night, and I was watching him.
Man, we put a video surveillance system around his property, right? And over the years, we've seen some weird shit that happens.
Weird shit. The weirdest one was a girl who broke into my van, rifled through it, then left a wallet with $100 in it, and then went around the side of the building and took a shit.
She just sat in his van. Like this chick looked like she had just come from downtown, like club and partying. I don't know. She was wearing a skirt. She looked like she was like a normal chick that was out partying or whatever, right? Breaks into
One
the
too
damn
many.
van. She just sits there and stares forward like she was going to drive it or something.
And then leaves all her money in it.
That's right. She left her wallet, huh?
Yeah, she left her wallet.
She left her wallet. That's right, with money in it in the van. Probably what was it? That was prior to going around the corner to take a shit.
Yeah, that was prior to it. Yeah,
Must have been a hell of a shit.
I guess.
Anyway, if you enjoyed those stats, not the shit
Or
part.
the story.
Or the story. No,
Send us $5.
no. CDC will not help you with shit stories. Oh, actually, maybe they did. Maybe I missed it. So you got to check this page out. cdc.gov/NCHS/FA stats. Fast ats, not ass. Fast ats. FA stats. Yeah, that site had like a real quick, like a whole bunch of links of random topics, and that was like data from statistics from all of these topics that they tracked.
Sweet.
And I mean, it was everything from arthritis to like grow ops for things, it's all kinds of crap. It was nuts, and it was all bite-sized little reports that are nicely laid out. Anyway, I have not
I like
seen
the way you used bite size and nuts in the same sentence.
D's nuts. I was just blown away at how much information was like readily available for like one little click, and I was like, "Holy crap!" So I'll be visiting that site again and probably developing a couple topics off of that site.
my God.
Because I mean, there was
boy.
just so much cool information there. I was like, "Dude, these are the facts I
just it.
live for."
All All right. So what kind of facts they give you? We got.
No, we'll do that. We'll do another later. As a matter of fact, we may even do a whole episode on just facts interesting facts that I found. Kind of like we did that episode on the phrases. What was it called? Origin of phrases. Yeah, common phrases. Yeah. Yep. That was kind of cool. I had fun researching all these random phrases. Dude, I'll just research a bunch of random stats and we can put together something about. Did you know?
So who coined the phrase to coin a phrase?
Oh, to coin a phrase. Well, that's going to be added to our next one because I've been feeling we're going to need to do a part 2 on that origin of phrases one because that was just fun, man. That was just fun looking up all those things. But and you can get your fill of random knowledge that will probably never help you. But but hey, it's interesting, right? Mental munchies.
Jeopardy questions.
We're full. There you go. You can excel. You too can excel.
We're helping you guys get ready for Jeopardy.
Yeah. So, why are we living longer? That was the first question that popped into my head. And Thomas had some interesting things. Tell us about this.
Well, one of the things that people don't realize is that we've made a huge jump in our hygiene. So if you look at the life expectancy...
Wait, you or me?
Well...
or the homeless?
We're on the other side of the table from each other. I can't tell right now.
All right. Hey, success.
But when you were given those numbers, what was your number for the life expectancy in the early 1800s?
I didn't have early. I have 1880 is the earliest.
Okay, what was that
and
number?
That was male and female average was 39.4.
39.4.
Yeah.
So 100 years later, we're at
1980.
1980. So what was what was the closest number you had there?
That would probably be around 70.
70?
Because in 1950 it was 65 for male and 71 for female.
So there's
probably more like 60, 75.
So it's almost doubling.
Yeah.
Your life expectancy.
Yeah.
So during that time, you got to remember that our hygiene level went up tremendously with things like fresh water availability. With plumbing, Listerine, with floor cleaners, just general medications and ways of cleaning wounds and treating wounds and small minor
iodine
things. And so we in the medical world we met, and even in the dental world, because people have died for decades over dental problems and things that nobody understood, and so we've been able to advance our health a little bit. So that's one of the biggest things that I think people forget about when they talk about the life expectancy changing is our hygiene level of things. I mean, obviously we've taken it kind of crazy now because everyone's washing their hands 85 times a day, which is bad for you, but
detrimental to your
health. But that's one of the biggest changes that we've made during that period of time to help it out. I mean, obviously there's tons of other things, but I feel like that one gets left out a lot. We have soap, basic soap. I mean, the average person in 1820 didn't really have much access to soap or running water.
Now you can go down to the local store and get a 16-foot aisle spread of different types of hand soaps.
Right.
Just please avoid the antibacterial hand soaps. Those things are so bad for us.
Yeah, they're pretty crazy, actually. I've gone through my spouts where I have used antibacterial soap on a regular basis, and the shit that it does to my fingertips, like drying them out and like fingers cracking, and just like, and then when I stopped using it finally, it got better.
Yeah.
not perfect,
aside from how rough it is to your own body, it wipes out a big portion of the microbial colonies that's on your skin, and the survivors are the ones that end up reproducing, and they become resistant to antibacterial agents. When we get sick, when these little bugs infect us and are eating us alive, and we go to use antibiotics to help our system at this point, you've already been exposed to it. It no longer works on them.
Yeah, and then I guess that would matter too. That would depend too on whether or not on what method the antibacterial soap is using, right? Because because what you're combining, you were talking about antibiotics with antibacterial, which can be two separate things, but for the same purposes could be used. Yeah, right. So it depends on what type of how do I say germ killing agent the antibacterial soap is using. Another thing along those lines, too, is when you're throwing it down the drain, I don't know what that causes in the sewage, in the sewage treatment plants. That's something I've not yet researched, but I have heard that
gets into the water.
Hey,
we're all zombies, dude.
We're all zombies. Really, we're all
6
dead.
weeks later,
we're reanimated from our high
dead.
High fructose corn syrup keeps us alive.
Oh yeah, that's the glue. That's what goes and fills in the space in between all your joints. And
nice.
As you get older.
Okay, but along those lines, clean water.
Clean water.
That was another thing you were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
We have much better means of keeping our drinking water clean, and better. How do I want to say this? Better means of distributing the clean
Clean
water
water.
to our homes. Whereas back then, if a pipe broke open and they didn't know about it because they didn't know how, they didn't have pressures per se, to pressure sensing technology to know that the line had burst, and all of a sudden the manure that's seeping through the field is going into the water line, broken pipe. There's all kinds of crazier things happened back then than did now. We've got this stuff down a lot better and can distribute the clean water to people more successfully. And that helps with hygiene.
Modernization of our environment, our existence. I mean, we've modernized ourselves in ways that have obviously been helpful.
Yeah.
With plumbing and fresh water and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy water filters for your own home. I mean,
Right.
be it a Brita filter or built-in or whatever. I mean, that's crazy. That wasn't really an option back in the day.
Well, you figure 100 years ago, people were just drinking whatever they found.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, whatever you can fill in your canteen.
That's why ciders were so popular.
Ciders.
Alcohol,
Yeah,
beer.
well, that is a main reason.
That's very true, yeah.
Alcohol is popular.
Yeah, we talked about that in the beer episode,
Yeah.
right? And I was going to say, nowadays, you can't just go down the river and drink it because you'll get E. coli from the homeless.
Right, especially in Sacramento.
That's right. Can you tell we're a little jaded by this? It just keeps getting
there's
worse
another
over
thing
here.
you can get in the water too. There's a amoeba that I was reading about. And I wish I could remember more about it. That is showing up in rivers now because of things like that. And if you breathe it in and it gets into your lungs, it can kill you in a couple of days.
What the hell?
Yeah. It's rare, but it's starting to be found a little more often.
Bumamoeba.
Huh, cool.
Something to look forward to.
Awesome. Again, why are we living longer? We're avoiding breathing in amoebas. Genetics. Well, I couldn't find anything real solid on this. And from what I was extrapolating from what I was reading, they were saying that genetics probably does play a role. I think definitely plays a role, but at this point, there's no solid evidence that I could find. Probably, so we'll keep it at probably. Probably does play a role in the longevity of how long we live. But at this time period, it's a little too early to know how much of a role that it plays. We're still kind of in an infancy of living this long. I know we just talked about 100 years, but really 100 years isn't enough to...
That's a blip in our timeline.
Yeah, especially when you talk about genetic evolution, right? I mean, that's nothing.
Oh, yeah.
So as it goes right now, we don't... from what... Again, this is a little bit of my own... this is pretty much my own take on this, so take it with a grain of salt. It seems to me, from what I was from my research, that at this point, it's too soon to tell how much of a role genetics plays in this because we haven't had the modern medicine that's helping us stay alive long enough to continue living like that, to have different genetic paths break apart. So let's say Thomas's gene pool from his family, and then if he ever has offspring or whatever is really, really strong, mine's really, really weak, we may still live to the same age because medicine may help us to that point. But once we've eliminated things like cancer and heart disease, let's say, for example, maybe 300 years from now, 200 years from now, whatever that takes, now our genetic differences can come to light more, in that we would be able to see how much longer we would live just based on genetics because we've eliminated all these other common causes of death. And then we could truly see, oh man, Thomas's family lives to 200 years old, or and mine only lives to 150 or whatever, right? So that's kind of the take on genetics. Nobody is I don't think anyone's thinking that it doesn't play a role. And we do have proof in a sense that it happens like that, because look you've got families that are in like third world countries and they're hitting 110, like all of them are
Right.
over 100. And it's like, I mean, it is probably part and parcel to how they're living and the environment.
Yeah.
But it's got to be something genetic, because look at this whole family over here is like,
Well, it could be genetic, but a lot of these places are also not exposed to the
see, that's what we don't know. Nature,
crappy
nurture,
products
genetics.
that we are
Yeah.
forcing.
You get these people who have lived off of fish directly from the ocean their entire life, and rice and stuff that they grow, in the
They've
jungle
never
around
eaten
them.
anything with
Yeah,
high
and-
fructose corn syrup.
Exactly. So, I mean, of course they're not dying of heart disease. Right? There's nothing to give them heart disease out there. Give them a cheeseburger and they'll keel over.
Speaking of this, and our life expectancy, this is a good one. I was doing some random reading a while back, and did you know that North America is one of the only only continents where dementia is actually really a thing?
What?
Yep. Most
Are
of
you
the
sure about
most
that?
of the rest of the world does not deal with dementia even close to the amount that we do in North
Oh,
America.
okay. Wait. You said
And
deal with.
Well, so as a thing, as an item, as elderly people have dementia, pretty common in America. And I was reading this thing that talked about diets, What spawned it was I read an article about a woman who was dying, and she had dementia and was going through all these problems. And some doctors decided they wanted to do an experiment. Her family said, "Let's do it." It was just changing her diet, completely changing her diet. Within a year, she had no more signs of dementia, and she could remember things like she had never had it at all.
I have read studies like that before about changing food intake and basically eating healthier, curing all kinds of crap.
Yeah, and so when you were talking about people in certain places living to be 110 or whatever, it does go back to that diet, and that's something Glenn and I talk about all the time is the American diet, and with all the companies that feed us crap. You go to a grocery store and you buy your food in a cardboard box. What kind of food are you buying?
Plastic.
You're buying plastic. You're buying a product. You're not buying food. You're buying a product. And so, our nutrition level, we have medicine, modern medicine is helping us and everything. But, again, this thing Glenn was bringing up earlier when we were talking is like our life expectancy is kind of going in the other direction because we're poisoning ourselves so much that, when you talk about these studies from 100 years ago, and, obviously they wouldn't know certain things that would happen. They wouldn't know certain companies like Monsanto would come along. But we're in that stage now where that's directly affecting our life expectancy because we're poisoning ourselves. And you look at some of these other countries, just like the dementia thing, it's starting to be a lot more widely talked about how some of the diseases that we're suffering from in North America, especially the United States, a lot of the rest of the world is not suffering from the diseases. Why? It's because of our food. That's the only equation that is even remotely fits any of this problem.
Interesting. I did not compare stats with other countries to see there are trends versus
when I was reading it, they were talking about dementia. They were talking about countries that were closer to the equator have almost zero dementia in their elderly because they eat more berries, mainly blueberries, walnuts, and there was another thing. Strawberries. Strawberries,
antioxidants
blueberries
from the berries.
Strawberries, blueberries, and walnuts were the three main differences in the diet.
I love berries and nuts.
Do you like to put those nuts in your mouth?
Twigs and berries. Great way to detract from Thomas's serious point. I'm sorry, man.
But I make a breakfast shake every day in the morning with blueberries in it.
Nice.
And I eat snacks through the day with
That's what I need to get back into. I used to do that too. I bought a Vitamix, 10 years ago or whatever. I still have it. It still works great. I think it's awesome. I used to do a lot of, I wouldn't call it liquid diet. It was more like, dude, I'm freaking lazy. And if I could take all these now, I know we're going off topic here, but blending up all those fibrous structures isn't the best way to consume them. But
no,
dude, I don't give a fuck.
But it's better than not consuming them.
Exactly. So you can blend the hell to liquefied, no fiber structure at all, a bunch of fruits and vegetables and whatever, and throw it in a cup and drink it, and that's still 800 times better than going to McDonald's.
Right.
And buying anything.
Absolutely.
Anything.
Yeah.
But they sell salad.
Is that
it's
the healthy
so
menu?
Healthy, yes. And they got boxes of fruit.
Yeah. Boxes of fruit.
Boxes of fruit, guys.
When someone says, "Hey, go get some fruits or vegetables," you come back with a potato. You're probably not doing too good,
dude. It's that too. And just because fruit is not fruit.
Fruit
it's not
people?
fruit. They're fruit people. What's in your salad? Fruit. It's not all the same. It's like chicken breast. It's like chicken tit, dude. How come you go buy chicken tit in the supermarket and they're like, okay, those look like average size
of a hot air balloon?
Yeah, whatever. Then you go buy it at Sam's Club or Walmart and that tit is like, dude, that chicken must have been like
6 feet tall.
like a small dog, dude. Or the chickens, they can't even stand. They're like huge breast implanted porn stars. They just fall over.
Right.
Can't even stand. Feathers can't cover those.
That's
boobs.
what I'm saying. We can't be eating this shit forever.
Yeah. So chickens ain't chicken. Same thing with fruit. Same thing with everything else. If they're selling it cheap, there's probably a reason.
Right.
Sometimes. Then sometimes it's just highway robbery because you get this example with the bean juice, right? You get the bean juice.
Yeah.
You go to fucking Starbucks and the bean juice is $5. You go to McDonald's, the bean juice is $1. What? You know, I mean,
Well,
One's
it's
got a better sales pitch.
what they can convince you to pay for it.
that's absolutely right, dude.
One's got a better ad campaign.
Yeah. They got better beans, man. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, but these beans are roasted like this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's all in the process.
Blonde roast.
Right. Oh yeah.
Bitches.
However, the blonde roast actually does have a higher caffeine content.
It has the highest caffeine. Did we talk about this with the caffeine?
I think we did.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, so I was talking with my coworkers about that the other day too.
Too much caffeine. Okay.
We looked it up so the lighter the roast, the more caffeine.
Yes.
Period. Because the longer you cook the coffee, the more caffeine you cook off.
Yep. The heat denatures it.
There you go.
Wow.
So, you want less caffeine? Want to make your own decaf? Burn your coffee.
You want a higher life expectancy?
Yeah, there you go. Hey, listen to the caffeine episode. You'll understand what we're talking about. On that note, how long can humans live? So there was a little bit of a...
This is just purely biologically living, not like...
Sure. I mean, are we not? We are biology, so I don't know how else you could look at it. Like,
Sure, but I mean...
my conscious being can live forever, Glenn.
I mean, are we talking about potentials with I don't know...
Freeze drying.
Let me... yeah.
freeze... Oh, all right.
Walt Disney's going to live forever, right? He's frozen.
Mechanical implants.
If we ziplock you now,
Yes.
vacuum ziplock you now, and we'll leave a note on there, unziplock in 2074.
Nice. A well-preserved Glenn.
And give you 1,000 years like Fry.
Yeah.
Futurama.
I'm thinking Idiocracy, but...
Oh, okay. Well, that too, yeah. But Fry, too, same thing, yes. So recently, a group of scientists kind of shook the community up and got floating around the internet, going viral or whatever. And they saying that they determined the max that the brain could operate. So basically, the max life average of 115.
That's the max. What happens? Does the brain just start to turn to putty?
Deterioration, I guess, is what they were claiming, or something along those lines. It's just the biological being was not meant to run longer than that, right? Well, obviously, that caused quite the stir in everywhere from anyone who would think of this logically. Now, obviously, they had backing behind how they came to this conclusion and whatever. But there's a couple of major points that I thought were quite relevant against that claim.
Against it,
yeah. One of the major things is that we have already had quite a few people live past 115. Currently, the current record holder is a French woman, and she died August 4th, 1997, at age 122 and 5 months.
what?
122 and a half.
That's the oldest documented.
Yes.
122.
That's pretty crazy.
I don't know if I'd want to live that long.
That's
Right.
like that's potentially twice the age of what the average was not too long ago, right? I mean, 60 something or whatever.
She's been retired so long she doesn't even remember what jobs are.
I don't know. I think they said too that she had I don't quote me on this one. I can't really remember, but I think they said she had started showing signs of dementia at 97. And then it got better when they put her into a home, and they started, into a home for memory assisted care or whatever that's called in France, I assume. I don't know. I didn't get into her personal life, but
They just feed her a bunch of blueberries.
Right.
Hey, I would eat blueberries all the time.
Right.
Somebody would bring me Phoebe
Blueberries, strawberries, walnuts.
You know how expensive those damn things are?
Yeah, fucking
I
expensive.
like walnuts too.
Right.
So another major thing that was wrong with this is a lot of scientists came out and said, wait a minute. It is way too soon to be claiming you have an answer for how long the average can be, the max that the average can be.
Agreed.
We go back to the point we made earlier. 100 years, we've accomplished a whole lot, and we're just barely beginning to figure out or determine what might set such a limit. Let alone we're not even anywhere close to actually discovering what that limit might be. And furthermore, there's lots of animals that live very, very, very long. If they can do it, for lack of a better phrase, there's probably a possibility for us to figure out how to do it too.
Right.
There was never anything that said anywhere that human beings can only live to a certain point. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense that we would have a limit at all. And the further we advance technology and medicine first, but medicine I think was only going to get us so far.
Well, technology advances medicine.
Oh yes, you're right, absolutely. But I just wanted to differentiate that the two are
yeah,
separate.
yeah.
Medicine is to cure ailments.
Yeah.
Aging is, yes, I see how it could be an ailment, but it's considered an ailment, but it is not an ailment. It is a natural progression of life as
Now
we
you got to
understand.
take an anti-aging pill.
So what if we found technology? This is where I differentiate the two. Maybe this is only in my head, but whatever. What if we discover technology that allows us to reverse or slow or stop the aging process? I guess it depends on how you look at aging. If you look at it as just normal life, part of life, or if you look at it as a disease or an illness.
Well, I mean, one of the things when you get older, your body starts being depleted of things that you can't replenish. And so I guess if you were going to go in that direction with,
Are you just you're talking about cellular deconstruction?
pretty much,
What if there was a way to regenerate cells?
that's what I'm saying.
So, and I remember reading an article about this. Not, I don't know when it was, a while ago. It wasn't for this research.
A week
for this.
ago Thursday.
Wait, there you go. Where they were talking about some of the, oh gosh, and I can't remember the damn term or whatever, but basically the type of cellular reconstruction that, say, lizards use to regrow their tail when they let it go, or starfish use. Like, I don't know if you know or not.
yeah.
You can take a starfish, cut the damn thing in half, and he makes two.
Yeah.
Or he makes another half of himself. Or
Some
herself.
worms do that.
Yeah, some worms do that too. So if that happens, again, if the animal kingdom can do it, there is a possibility that we can, because whether or not you know it, but we are genetically close to everything on this planet.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, some creatures we are more genetically close to than others.
Like mushrooms.
Sure. I was going to say monkeys, but
Well,
okay.
our neurological structure closely resembles the mycelium structure of mushrooms.
Spores, dude. There you go.
We
so
Our brains are
sporadic.
well, they're a model of what the mushrooms do.
Nice. I've heard that before too. The neural networks that spores, fungi apparently create underground to talk to each other and communicate.
Are much like the brain.
Yes.
That's a whole other topic. That's like Avatar shit right there. Dude.
Nice.
But anyway, before we get into that, damn, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What are you talking about?
No, because I think that's a great freaking topic, dude. I totally want to do a topic on fungi, dude, because the stuff people don't know about fungi is mind blowing.
The fungi are the rulers of this planet.
I mean,
Truly.
there's a new documentary that's coming out too. I just saw the previews for on iTunes trailers or whatever, called Fungi something. Damn it. Anyway, looks freaking
Fungi
amazing.
party.
Talking about that really fun guy.
Yeah, that fun guy. Hey. That's ridiculous. Let me see here. Okay, so let's take
So anti-aging. That's where we're at.
anti-aging technology.
Remember?
That's
We're
right.
talking
So
about- that's where we're
hey, so who's to
For
say
the only
that,
person who's listening who was paying attention.
yeah, who's to say that we don't discover technology that allows us to reconstruct cellular deconstruction?
I mean, if you're
rebuild
going back
cells?
into a DNA and you can pull out exact increments of everything that makes up a human, and you can figure out which one of those are falling apart. Basically,
Yeah.
they're decreasing. So if you can change that course or add something to it to keep those cells from.
using nanotechnology to create not
Would you be rebuilding cell structure at that point or something? But if you
yes.
could come up with a pill or something that could reverse those actions, I mean, the sky's the limit.
I have no idea how it would be administered, but what? Yeah, the point is, what if
Probably
you could
anally.
Yes, Thomas. Everything is done anally. Yes. Can you imagine the justification? All this super advanced.
We can make you live
technology-
forever, but it's got to go up your ass.
It's got to go up your ass. Why? Why does it have to go that way?
Man, I wonder if they're ever going to have the technology to image a brain like we do, like hard drives when we want to.
Oh, to download. What was that movie with Keanu Reeves? Was it Keanu Reeves or Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp.
It was Johnny Depp. Yeah. Well, Johnny.
Damn, not Conspiracy. God, that movie was so cool. I loved it.
Didn't it have the word Johnny in it?
No, it's not Johnny Mnemonic.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
No.
Sorry, I totally.
Transcendence.
Yeah,
I
there
can
it is.
never remember
yeah.
that damn name of that movie, and I reference it for all kinds of random stuff because I believe that's our future. I believe exactly where that like we did the transhuman episode, right?
Yeah.
You watch that movie Transcendence, and I mean, it looks ridiculous. It might look ridiculous. Depends on how much sci-fi you like and how sciencey you are or whatever. But that movie is
Sciencey.
We're like a few steps away from the technology that will lead to I believe anyway, that will lead to the extreme levels of application that are shown in that movie. I mean, once you crack the door open on a few advancements and you begin going down those paths, the capabilities grow exponentially fast and exponentially in quantity and value, in value. It's insane. And we're like, all humans have to do is figure out a few things to open the doors to go down that path, and then that transcendence movie is entirely possible. Downloading the human brain is totally one of them.
Right.
Well, I think being able to move forward stem cell research would definitely be one of those directions.
What has happened with? See, that's another.
I don't know, man.
We should do an episode. What the hell happened to talking about stem cells? All the controversy about the embryonic fluid.
It's Christians,
or taking
dude.
Yeah, they shut it all down, and then
All
all
the
of a sudden it's
Christians.
like, wait, what happened? Because did we
all the
finally get rid of
Christians.
those people and like move forward, or
I don't know.
did they?
I know right now
abandon it
there's a big
altogether?
thing where people are going down to places like Costa Rica and places in South America that are that are becoming the
heard of that.
forefront in technology
Getting
on stem
shots or
cell
whatever.
research.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Lots of people, and coming back with lots of success.
Wow. Interesting.
There's lots of other places in the world that are being a little bit more open-minded about science and health and developing
America has never been one of the quickest.
They've never been one.
No.
And it's also, if it doesn't stand to profit somebody immediately, then it's never going to happen.
And our FDA has been bought and sold so many times over that it holds us back from that.
Yeah.
I think they are starting to change a little on that, but really they're probably just finding new ways to make money off of hooking up companies who are doing research on this particular thing or that.
Because you're talking about expanding our life expectancy. If we can get out of this, being pressured by all these companies that control all this information, I mean, the sky's the limit again. But what's the profit in that? It's like we said before. What's the profit in curing cancer?
No, nothing.
Nothing.
It's the profit is in keeping you living with cancer,
right?
And
living with cancer, using our medications to maintain.
That's a perfect progression to exactly the next point I wanted to talk about. Remember, living longer isn't living healthier. They stand to the entities, the powers that be, whatever you want to call it.
The infamous they.
The infamous they. The
It doesn't
large
mean
corporations.
it doesn't mean that your quality of life is
No,
there.
they stand to gain more by you suffering from some ailment and them feeding you drip-drop medication to extend your life much more than they stand to gain by curing you or killing you. It's just a simple fact. We're like
Simple math.
We're blood bags, and dripping us dry one drop at a time is exactly the goal and motivation. So there are a lot of cases of people who are living very long but horrible lives. Dementia is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Slow killing cancers. I mean,
Yeah.
not only is that painful physically, I don't really know the full details of all the side effects that dementia brings. But
my
go ahead.
grandfather died from Alzheimer's mainly, but
Okay.
he had dementia.
Is there physical pain with Alzheimer's?
I don't really know much about the physical pain thing.
Okay.
It's just that you start to lose your ability to
Perceive reality,
to
right?
perceive
Okay,
reality,
yeah.
to make any sort of connections with things.
Yeah.
So you basically sort of just drift off into nothing. You're
Yeah.
just you're just lost.
And as I've heard from people whose parents have suffered from this or whatever, it tends to go one of two ways. You go like a little baby where you're happy but don't remember anybody, or you go where you're fucking scared, paranoid, and just in hell, in your head. In a horrific scene, you're afraid of everything and whatever,
Yeah.
and don't remember anybody.
Well, my
So it's
grandfather just kind of went into doing nothing. He stopped walking.
So there's a vegetated state there too.
Vegetated.
Okay.
He stopped
Wow.
walking. What was one of the main things? He didn't talk. I
So
don't
see,
think
it's
he
an
spoke for
extreme.
like the last 6 or 7 years he was alive.
It's an extremist thing. It's either nothing, fear, or baby.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
But what's crazy is that, I never, of all the research, and especially back then when my grandfather was going through this in the late 90s, my mom got really into learning about it. And of course I learned a little bit about it too. But as far as I know, there's never been really much conclusive evidence of research to what these people are actually experiencing in their head, because how can you tell?
Yeah.
Other than like brain waves or mapping,
brain scans, and that's it.
scanning, MRI mapping or something like that.
You'd have to be able to learn.
But think about how horrible that would be. Maybe you are actually conscious of what's going on, but you have no connection to your spinal cord or anything else, so you can't make any sort of motion, sound, movement, anything. But
Trapped
you can
in your own body.
Trapped in your own body.
Yep. Like paralysis. There's people
like
that with
paralysis
or even coma. Some people claim that the same thing with comas, or they can't come out of the coma, but they're conscious and they're like, "What the fuck?
Yeah.
Wake up! I can't wake up." You're just like disconnected from your body and mind.
Yeah, and my grandfather, when my mom would go to visit him, she would sit and talk to him for hours, and she would hold his hand, and sometimes she would ask him questions, and he would squeeze her hand as the conversation. That was the
That's
only response
horrible.
that they ever had. I mean, for like the last 5 years he was alive.
That's horrible. Along those lines, because
Quality of life.
yeah, one of the things I was reading as I was reading through this stuff, one of the things that kept popping up when I started looking at longevity not necessarily equaling happiness or healthiness or whatever, right? Was all kinds of reports, statistics, and articles on malpractice and wrongdoings in assisted living facilities. And dude, that shit was just depressing. I mean, it was like
It's extremely
it's
depressing.
so many situations where it is all to the bad. I don't know about the rest of the country, but in our area, these what do you want to call it? Entrepreneurs, people who wish to own their own business have discovered how I don't know why. I guess I don't even want to say easy, but it sure seems pretty damn easy to me because they're popping up like Starbucks on every corner. Assisted living homes of all sizes. They will convert an existing 3-bedroom home to a multi-bed, facility, and they will build little apartment-type complexes from 5 beds to 50 to 100. Sometimes they look like large apartment complexes. Sometimes they look like a duplex. Sometimes they look like a little, multi-dwelling apartment with, 30 units or something. They are popping up everywhere. There are homes being torn down to build them in place. There is land being bought up that was vacant. And it's crazy. They have found such an industry. They have found a way to make such a successful industry out of this that, and it's how do you say, it's scalable. That's what I was looking for. It's scalable. If you've got $100,000 to invest because it's just you and your wife, or maybe you can buy one. If you've got $1 million to invest, you can buy one. If you've got $10 million to invest, you can buy one. And it's just money rolling in once it's built because they fill the beds immediately. The money keeps going. People just sign over their pensions. People's children will just work and keep signing over the check because everybody's a working American. Nobody, well, except for the freaking homeless, apparently, but nobody can afford to not work. Husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, uncles, grandparents, everybody has to work. It's too expensive everywhere now. So you've got all these people who are off at work and can't take care of the elderly anymore. You have to do something with them. You can't leave them at home all day. Right. So you put them in assisted living homes. And you hope and you pray, if that's your thing, that they're okay. And you put your trust in somebody you don't really know much about. Yeah. So these things are popping up everywhere to take care of our elderly, and our elderly are just increasing in number because the population grew from when they're the baby boomers.
There's more elderly right now than there has ever been, especially in this country.
Ever been. And their dying off numbers are high with respect to deaths per year, but that's not really killing their count. Yeah. For lack of a better term, I didn't mean to say killing, but that's not really reducing or decreasing their count. There's a lot of them because there was a whole bunch of babies made
post-World War II.
Post-World War II, man. Everybody just started making babies.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's crazy to think about. And, like, the number of reports, all that crap was so depressing. Dude,
it's horribly depressing.
I had to get up and walk away from the computer and think, fuck getting old. Yeah. Dude, I don't want to get old. I think suicide's the answer.
Yeah, when I was...
goddamn, dude. It's horrible, man. Especially if you age poorly and you have to go through something like this. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah, and people, and because of our diets and things and the crap that we're eating and ingesting
we
and
make
pollution
it worse
and stuff,
in
we're
the
making
end.
it worse. And so people are having these problems much younger in life as well.
That's true, yes.
That's so you can suffer from dementia from the time you're 55 years old at this point.
Yeah, people are having heart attacks.
You live to be 95, so you want to spend 40 years of your life in some horrible condition. Look how expensive that is. But the statement you made earlier, look how many people are making money off you being sick for that long. Yeah. The longer you're sick and the more people are sick, the more money is made. So quality of life doesn't matter so much.
No. Anyway, so if that didn't impress you.
Let's give you some more that will.
I'm sorry. Let's change the tune a little bit here. Women living longer than men. I found that one. That was, I knew, everybody knows this already, at least as far as I thought. But I started looking into, with respect to this topic and then a little bit about why they think this is. Because, cut to the chase there, nobody knows for sure. There are a few good hypotheses as to why this is happening.
Are they being tested?
They are being tested.
All right.
So that appeases the Glenn.
It does.
In my word usage. I tried to avoid the theories because that's just people talking shit. So no theories. Anyway, let me read you a couple of them, or rather mention a couple of them because I thought this is kind of interesting. One of them was that women have 2 X chromosomes, thus keeping double copies of every gene and having a spare should one become faulty.
That's XXY, right?
No, they have XX. We have XY.
There's another description I was thinking of that. Forget another topic.
Another theory is what they call the jogging female heart. This is another hypothesis, and this is the idea that a woman's heart rate increases during the second half of the menstrual cycle, offering the same benefits as moderate exercise. Now, ladies, do not take this too literally. That does not mean you get to stop going to the gym. Nobody should stop going to the gym. But I thought that was funny. I was like, oh, shit. If this spreads, all the girls will be like, I'm on my period. I don't need to work out.
Well, you know, it's crazy to me when I think about the life expectancy difference between men and women, and I've always known that women generally live longer, but it's always baffled me because I'm like, most women have so many more health issues than men. Women are susceptible to a lot more what's considered becoming regular medical issues now, mainly because of reproductive.
Mainly because of reproductive things. You're right. Yeah, you're right about that. Iron deficiency is real
all
popular.
Kinds of crazy
There's
stuff.
all kinds of crazy stuff. Yep, you're right. Going real quick, the result is. Oh, and they were saying that the result is of this jogging female heart hypothesis that because of the additional exercise that their body is getting from it, it is delaying the risk of cardiovascular disease later in life, which is the same result you get from working out. And also eating healthy, but working out in general keeps your heart.
So cardiovascular disease?
Yeah, cardiovascular
So
disease.
I wonder if there's any data that shows that elderly men or women have a different rate.
So cardiovascular disease was listed, I don't have it here though, was listed as in the causes, of deaths per year that I talked about in the very beginning. What would be interesting to see though is cardiovascular disease numbers broken down by gender.
Yeah.
So to see if it killed more men than it did female.
It could be a cross link. It could be a link between.
Yeah, that's
what
a
you're
good question.
talking about
That's a good question. I think that number is there because I think there was gender breakdowns for each of them. If you clicked on the again, man, that if you guys are
another
curious,
rabbit hole.
Yeah, that was that's all from that CDC NCHS data brief. Look that thing up, man. That's cdc.gov/NCHS/FA stats, fast ats. Check that out. It was really, really cool. Another theory, I think this one's more of a theory because I didn't see that there was any research. I mean, there probably is. If you really dig into these, you can probably find research on all kinds of stuff. But one of the other points there was, or angles was a matter of size. Women being smaller, they have less cells in their body. Anybody who's smaller is going to have less cells, and therefore less likely to develop harmful mutations. Along those same lines, men, if on average men are larger, they may have more wear and tear on tissue due to moving around a larger mass. I mean, that's just simple physics stuff.
Okay, so taking that information to mind from a very early age, when you're talking about life expectancy, I've always thought it was sort of strange that smaller people, especially Asian cultures, live longer and they're smaller. And as I got older and started learning a little bit more about the human body and the wear and tear on things like your heart, because of your size, your knees, and all those things, it makes a lot of sense that smaller people could live a longer lifespan because their body isn't stressed as much.
Yeah.
So like you take like an average American who eats crap, is overweight, doesn't exercise, is large, is carrying around 40 or 50 extra pounds.
I'll have you know, I try to refrain from eating crap.
You don't eat the poo-poos?
The poo-poo.
I do not eat the poo-poos.
No fast food for you.
That is not what I want for America.
But, you look at that and look at the stress on it. Because, no matter how big or small a person is standing next to each other, their heart is generally the same size. A lot of your organs are very similar in size no matter how big you are as a person.
That sounded very hippie of you, Thomas.
It's the truth. So the stress and the wear on somebody. So if you're 350 pounds, and you're 5'10", you have basically the same size heart as somebody who's half your size, but your heart is getting twice as much wear because it's having to do so much extra work. So all of your organs are in the same thing: pancreas, your liver, your kidneys, everything.
That's another good example of that too. Is that bigger, not to equate humans to dogs, but bigger dogs die quicker.
Mm-hmm. And if any of you guys have ever known very large people, like friends who are really large people, they always have health problems.
Oh, absolutely.
Every large person I've ever known, like I've had
You're
friends
not that large, Glenn.
Well, I've had friends that are like super, super tall.
Yeah.
They always have health problems.
Yes.
They always do.
Yep.
So it's like when you're this giant structure. And
not even just being overweight.
Just
being
just
physically
being
larger. Yeah, big boned or tall or whatever.
Look at retired basketball players and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of these older people, their body is stressed. So again, your internal organs are about the same size no matter how big you are.
It's crazy.
Right? And so going back to the conversation about women who are smaller as a possibility of them living longer because their body doesn't have as much stress because of all these other things that are going on.
There it is. There's my biological reasoning for, or anthropological reasoning for liking petite women.
Right.
I've got it down to a science now.
Other than the fact that they're adorable.
There you go. Hey, man, I'm looking for something a little more solid. Another...
a little more longevity in this.
Yes, that's right. Another angle is, and from what I was reading in this particular article, they were saying this is probably the more likely candidate. Again, it could be multiples of these two, why women live longer than men. Testosterone levels. This goes kind of along the lines of the angle Thomas was talking about there, but more internally rather than externally, or body internally versus size, and shape of your body. Testosterone levels are much higher in men, causing them to, for lack of a better term, quote unquote, burn out faster. There was a study that they quoted in this article by a Korean scientist. I think it was done in the 50s. I could be wrong about that. Anyway, he analyzed the data from 81 eunuchs within the imperial court. And for those that don't know, eunuchs have had their testicles removed. And typically it is done before puberty. So they're children, oftentimes children. So they never get that huge rush of testosterone, which turns you into a man, make your balls drop. Anyway, he showed that from this study that they lived to these 81 eunuchs lived to an average of around 70 years old, when at the time the average was 50 for the non-eunuchs in the imperial court. Now, the reason I've said that twice now in the imperial court is because one of the angles that he was trying to take, at least as far as our article referenced it, he wanted to find people who were of similar wealth and status that were taken care of and lived the best quality life that they were, going to live at that time. Yeah. So these are people who were in the imperial court it's like in their government, I guess, if you want to say, who should have had a good quality life. So that lack of testosterone helped them live longer.
This goes back to a conversation we've had before about how in the future there won't be a man and woman. There'll be a being, and we'll use science to reproduce. And because we're going to remove things like this testosterone, future humans will live longer because they're not having the problems that all of these other things give them hereditary.
We'll just be a super passive-aggressive race.
Right?
Yeah. That's the first thing I was thinking is like, if you're really bitchy. Oh, no, watch out, man. I was just thinking, because if you remove the testosterone, I've thought about that quite a few times in life, is if you could
removing your testosterone?
Yes. No, removing the sex drive from humanity.
Absolutely.
So that, it's not like you still wouldn't have sex. You would still, just because you're removing the sex drive doesn't necessarily mean you're removing the pleasure, but let's say you took away the pleasure too. You would still have people doing it, but for a purpose, a reason, right?
Reproduction.
So what would happen to humanity if you removed that drive? Can you imagine how different we would be? I don't know, for better or for worse or whatever. But
well, for George on Seinfeld, he got smarter.
That's right. It's because you didn't have to worry about women anymore.
I stopped having sex. Now I'm a genius.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's a very old tactic.
Right.
By everything from military to sports players. Yeah. Don't jerk off. Don't have
sex the night before the game.
You need to be at your most aggressiveness is what they're after.
Yeah.
And then I remember reading a long time ago that the military used to experiment with putting saltpeter and other chemicals in soldiers' food to get their sex drive down lower so that they weren't more controllable.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure that's true.
I've often, me too. I've often thought, how much better, and that's usually the angle I take at it, how much better would humanity be if we could eliminate that huge distraction?
Right, and that's when we talked about before even when we talked about VR porn and how the progression. Yeah, we did. When we talked,
I told you about that.
Yeah. When we move to a phase where we don't have to reproduce physically, we're more in a scientific way of reproducing, and we take out testosterone and all those other things. Now our life expectancy increases because of all these things that are causing all these other diseases and other side effects.
Can you imagine the selection process too? That you would literally walk around looking for a mate and be like, "Let me see your numbers." I don't know.
You could probably just go to a bank or a center and they would tell you, give you the list of people that you
basically
it'll be based off your social credit score.
Yeah,
there you
go.
Sesame.
Be off your Sesame credit score.
Sesame chicken. If you haven't listened to our social credit system episode, man, find out what's coming.
Because that's how you're going to reproduce.
It's just how you're going to do everything, man. They're going to
your
judge
behavior
you.
is going to be judged by your government.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Say that out loud.
Yeah, yeah. And shoot us an email. Let us know how you think. What you think about it. The
If
last
you can.
one. Yeah. The last one I had on this list was that women have high estrogen content count. Whatever. I don't know what count.
Well,
Content.
we all do now because we have plastics on
Oh,
all of our food
And we
stuff.
drink soy.
and soy products.
Soy products.
Which
boobs.
Bob had bitch tits. So apparently, estrogen has, I did not know this, antioxidant properties, which assists in helping to prevent cell damage. So because they have more estrogen, that might actually...
So the cell structure survives longer.
And also prevents things, foreign contaminants and chemicals from attacking it. So, yeah, I guess that would definitely help.
That would help a ton.
Yeah, so...
Where did I get in line for some of that?
So basically, we're now talking about removing testosterone and injecting ourselves with estrogen.
Well, that's what I say. We're going back to the
So I guess we're all turning to women.
well, we're sort of, but we're going to turn into to whatever the una version of a human would be that would forego our existence as a race.
Interesting.
Our intelligence goes up. Our life expectancy goes up.
Oh, yeah.
Our quality of life goes up.
The advancement of humanity would have to eliminate a lot of our primitive drives.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the biggest things holding us back.
Right.
But yeah, by far.
But when you look at science fiction, and sometimes you see the aliens and stuff, you look at them, you're like, is there a man and a
they're
woman
just like,
here?
yes,
It's not.
they're-
It's a singular.
Yes, they're just like
that's where I'm
rounded
going
out
with this.
entities, right? I love that depiction.
I used to always say that the older you get, the older humans get, the older a man gets, the more he becomes like a woman, and the older a woman gets, the more he becomes like a man.
Why do you say that?
Because look at them. Look at people when they get older.
Continue. What am I looking for?
Just their general appearance.
Huh.
Just
My
start
grandma's got a beard.
See what I'm saying? Did she have a beard when she was 20?
No.
I do know.
Absolutely
I do
not.
notice. Yeah, the girls seem to tend to look a little more manly, shorter hair, and kind of square. They kind of square out. They also shorten out. It's a little, maybe
Yeah.
sometimes a little stockier, sometimes thinner. It depends. They can kind of go either way.
I think
but-
maybe if we could make humans live to be 200 years old, they might just genetically turn into the other one.
So we're born pretty much the same. I mean,
Right.
before puberty, we
Maybe
all
if we
are
lived
running on the
long
same
enough, we
skeleton.
would
So
complete the cycle.
I was talking about that too. Like until you hit puberty, like boys kind of look like girls. Like they're
Right.
like
no, there's no
super
difference
feminine, right?
until the hormones start to play on the body.
Yeah.
You're the same.
When we're developing in the womb, we're all female until a certain point, right? And then so yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. When you talk about the elderly and people, you start looking at people. I started looking at people years ago, and I'm like, man, when people get older, men become way more like women. Become more passive aggressive. They're not as
their testosterone level drops
testosterone low drops. So all these chemical changes are going into people. It's like I feel like if you could live long enough, there might be a completion of the
then
cycle.
Post-menopause, the estrogen
See?
levels drop, testosterone levels increase.
Right.
It's a balancing of the hormones.
Right.
Well, there you have it, folks. That's the note we're ending it on. There is the scientific proof that women will rule
The world.
the existence.
Yeah. We're slowly going that way. We started that way because we talked about how humans started out basically as women in the womb in the earlier stages. Now we're just
Now
transferring
they
back
just
over
need to
and
stay that
finishing,
way.
just finishing the whole thing out.
There it is.
Wow. So
All
the
right,
biggest
everyone.
problem with the humanity has been men.
And we just gained some female listeners. Yes. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Show notes and other info can be found at our website, greatdistraction.com. The Great Distraction is listed in iTunes, and we greatly appreciate it when our listeners take the time to look us up and leave us a 5-star rating and review. That helps our show grow and motivates us to continue producing content. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so using the email address, greatdistractionpodcast@gmail.com, or via our website. We're always interested in hearing any thoughts, comments, or questions from our listeners. Keeping up on the latest from us can be done in several different ways. You can add us to your favorite RSS feed tracker. The link is available on our website or in iTunes. Or you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Great Distraction, one word, no space. As always, thank you for listening, and thank you for all the support.